Buonasera, ben arrivati, ben arrivate.
Good evening, welcome to everyone. There's now going to be a reading of a few texts from Leader Apple. And there will be accompanying the texts a song that Leader Apple really likes.
A causa della mia filosofia di vita del dubbio, che mi insegue come un incubo fin dalla mia infanzia, non so.
Because of my life philosophy of doubt, which has been chasing me like a nightmare since my childhood, I've never been sure of anything. For the individual in the Middle Eastern society, happiness seemed to be unattainable. Somewhere there was something completely false, but where? I was always full of thoughts, worries and fear, because as long as I can go back with my memory, I had to answer this question myself, although I had wanted someone to help me. I did not want a cheap, false life. I did not want to live without the truth. But where was I going to find it?
Oserei dire che la libertà.
I dare say that freedom is the goal of the universe. I've often wondered if the universe is not in fact searching for freedom. The formulation of freedom as a deep quest exclusive to human society has always seemed incomplete to me, and I have always thought that there must be some element related to the universe. When I think of the particle-energy duality that is the cornerstone of the universe, without hesitation, I would point out that energy is freedom. If quanta are defined as the smallest particles of energy, then we must admit that quantum theory is able to explain almost all diversity. Yes, quantum motion is the creative power of all diversity. I cannot help but wonder if this is the God humanity has always sought. I think it is important not to be selfish when it comes to freedom and not to fall into the reductionism that restricts all freedom to human beings. Can it be denied that the fluttering of the bird in a cage is a fluttering for freedom? Defining freedom as plurality, diversification and differentiation in the universe will make it easier to explain social morality. Plurality, diversification, even if only implicitly, are indicative of an intelligent being's inherent ability to make choices. The level of intelligence and flexibility in a human society is the real foundation of social construction. In this sense, it is appropriate to define freedom as the strength of social construction or moral attitude. Social morality is only possible with freedom. More precisely, freedom is the source of morality. Morality can be defined as the solidified state of freedom, the tradition of freedom, or the code of freedom. If moral choice is based on freedom, then the connection between freedom and intelligence, conscience and reason is analyzed, and it becomes clear why morality can be defined as the collective conscience of a society.
Anche la connessione.
The connection between social policy and freedom also seems obvious. The participating subjects of a society become free through the arts of politics. A society that fails to develop politics is doomed to failure. To demand freedom in the absence of policy is a catastrophic mistake. Power and the state arise only when social policy is denied. Where politics ends, power and state structures are at work. Power and the state are where politics and therefore freedom ends. Capital creates the state and the state creates capital. The same is true of any apparatus of power. Just as social policy generates freedom, power and the state are spheres in which freedom is lost. Power and state structures may perhaps make some individuals, groups, or a nation richer and freer, but this is possible only at the expense of poverty and slavery in other societies. The result has been all kind of destruction, from wars to genocide. In the capitalist world system, politics has suffered its great defeat. Once it is recognized that freedom depends largely on diversity, then a meaningful connection can be made between equality and freedom in a context of diversity. If individual and collective freedom are reconciled, we will be able to speak of a satisfactory and optimal free social order. Probably a democratic society is the most appropriate socio-political system, both to strike a balance between individual and collective freedoms and to achieve a dimension of equality in diversity.
Identità è un concetto.
Identity is a concept referring to the feeling of belonging to a community and characteristics such as religion, ethnicity, culture, and gender. But the important question is whether the concept of identity is open and flexible or rigid and closed. Being open and flexible with respect to identity will make a huge contribution to achieving democratic solutions. When a society, a people, is prevented from being themselves, it means condemning its individuals from birth to weakness and loneliness, either immense loneliness or assimilation to another reality. This is the great dilemma that I called the Kurdish dilemma, the forced choice between the plague or cholera. The relationship between democracy, freedom, and equality is easily understood. They are not mutually exclusive. The more democracy develops, the more freedoms develop. If freedom develops, equality ensues. Democracy is the true oasis in which freedom and equality flourish. Democracy is the ability of communities to manage themselves without the state. The alternative to the state is democracy. The democratization of Kurdistan is not only a matter of laws, but more importantly, a complex social project, an ever-evolving process, a dynamic democratic process stretching from local administrations in villages and small towns, through councils and municipal administrations in large cities, to the General People's Congress.
La prima vittima della società gerarchica.
The first victim of the hierarchical society was the matricentric system, based on natural authority. Women are the very first social group to be repressed, and this repressive process has long been neglected by the social sciences because of the dominance of patriarchal society, even within social studies. The first counter-revolution within society was to drag women step by step into the hierarchical society, causing them to lose all their strongest social attributes. Let us look, for example, at how women were repressed within the family. Think of the so-called honor killings and love killings, a monopoly of men, and we see how the repression endures to this day. If we do not look closely at how the condition of women has changed from hierarchical society onwards, we cannot understand either the structure of the class society on which the state rests, or the state itself. Woman has been ripped out of natural society, pushing her into almost total slavery. All other forms of slavery and servitude have developed as a consequence of the enslavement of women. This means that we cannot analyze and understand the other forms of servitude and slavery unless we first analyze the slavery of the woman. And if we do not overcome the bondage of woman, we cannot overcome the other bondages either. A society can only be called free and egalitarian if women within it are free and enjoy equal rights. To achieve a truly democratic society, a specific organization must be created. A general democratization movement is not enough. Women themselves must create their own democratic goals and organizations. It is necessary to strive for freedom and to understand women's behavior as a cultural revolution. Only those who understand in its totality the way women, or rather man-woman relations, are viewed and overcome, they can truly have a radical and free identity. Unless the relationship of domination and possession towards women is broken down, a free relationship between man and woman cannot be realized.
Possiamo definire la società.
We can define natural society as the spontaneous form of an ecological society. One of the most important social contradictions of the present day is the fact that ecological society has been suppressed step by step by the expansion of statist society. When man enslaved his fellow man, he also brought down the acts of destruction on nature. So the problem of social ecology begins with civilization. Natural society is in a sense an ecological society. Power, which destroys society at its core, also destroys the meaningful connection with nature. If society were not torn apart at its core, there would be no extraordinary ecological problems. Just as one must know the history of women in order to create free women, one must also know the history of ecology if one wants an ecological society. A policy that promises salvation from the current crisis can only lead to a just social system if it is ecological. If ecology and feminism develop further, the patriarchal status system will completely lose its balance. The real battle for democracy and socialism will become a full opportunity of it if it banners its insight on women's freedom and salvation of nature. Only a battle understood in this sense for a new social system can lead to a meaningful exit from the present chaos.
Grazie mille.
Thank you very much to Francesca Minestrella for the music and the words. Dear friends, dear comrades, I'd like to start by thanking the SPI CGIL for having given us this room and for supporting us. I'd also like to thank the municipality of Rome and the cultural representative for bringing the greetings from the mayor. And with deep gratitude, we'd like to welcome everyone to this important conference. We want to thank you from the heart for being here today. It's not just about your physical presence. The fact that you're here in this moment has a deeper meaning. It means that each one of you has contributed in different ways to the cause of the Kurdish people during these long and difficult years of struggle. We're here to thank you, but especially to confront you, because this is a crucial moment. After decades of resistance and sacrifice, today we're nearer than ever to one of the fundamental goals that we gave ourselves 26 years ago, the liberation of President Abdullah Öcalan. As all of us have fought together for his freedom, President Öcalan has never stopped struggling for a political solution to the Kurdish question. And this with this conviction, 2 years ago, we launched a new step in the campaign with the title Freedom for Öcalan, a political solution for the Kurdish question. His resistance in the hard prison of Imrali has generated important results. Firstly, the paradigm of democratic confederalism, which he came up with, has allowed the Kurdish people to transform their own destiny from an invisible people to a people that today is the source of inspiration for many others, whose experience is discussed in social movements and studied in universities across the world. And again today, President Öcalan has taken a decisive step towards peace. His call on the 27th of February for a political solution and a democratic society represents a fundamental guide for the future, not only for the Kurdish people, but for the whole Middle East. Dear friends, your presence here today is also a strong signal, an important support to that call. And that's why we want to thank you again. We hope you all have a great conference. We want this to be a fertile space for confrontation, for reflections, and for shared efforts. And that's why I'd like to begin the work of these days with some words from Gianni Rodari. Very important, especially in this historic moment. I think they can encompass the deep sense of this, which is our struggle. He says, there are some things that should never be done. Not by night, not by day, neither by night. Not on the sea, neither on the land. For example, the war. Thank you very much. I'd now like to pass the microphone to Salvatore Marra, the spokesperson for Foreign Affairs in the CGIL. Thank you, Yilmaz. I'm going to be really brief because my job here is to welcome you all to this room from the trade unions of retired people and from the CGIL and from the working Italians. I wanted to share with you some reflections and wish you a good work. The first reflection, it's become a priority for the Italian trade unions, European ones and also international, the defense of democracy. It's a word that I believe everyone in this room finds really important. Starting from Italy, the attack that we suffer from the security laws against the right to protest at the world level, and the multiplying of autocracy and dictatorships in the world. I think that it's fundamental that an organization like ours, which this year celebrates 80 years of anti-fascism in Italy, from the liberation, we can't do anything else other than continuing this battle for democracy in a moment in which extreme right, authoritarianism and nationalism and dictators seem to be growing. And the news of this time, we think about Argentina of Milei, is that these dictatorships are actually elected by the people with majorities. So I was saying, we have a task. Who believes in democracy, self-determination, freedom of people, has a task. So defending this democracy. The trade unions have to defend this with old and new instruments. Struggle, strikes, protests, but also with more modern techniques. Participation of democratic life of the country. For example, popular referendums, like in the 9th of June, I invite you all to take part, to give a sign. We also believe in the right to vote as a tool of democracy, to defend the democracy, which is under attack, especially by extreme right movements. The right movements, extreme right movements, have something in common. If you look a few hundred meters from here, there's the national seat of the CGIL Union. It was destroyed, attacked by fascist groups. It was an unprecedented attack, but also another 100 meters away from here, the organization which organized the destruction of this seat of one of the biggest trade unions in the world was allowed to open its own new seat So this is a clear provocation. Why the extreme right? Why is the extreme right so annoyed with the trade unions? With who generates civil society, who brings people together? Because the extreme right, we can also see in the periphery of Rome, I'm happy to see here today, it attacks the division. Whoever works collectively, like us, like you, is an enemy, a natural enemy. Because it destroys that essential element, which is fear. Fear of what's different, fear of who emigrates and steals your job. The trade unions, we do the exact opposite. We bring people together. We bring people together behind noble causes like this one, of the Kurdish people. And they're annoyed with us because we've always been for multilateralism. It's a revolutionary thing. It's revolutionary to say, let's have a political solution when we have European commissions that tell us that we have to have kids because we're going to get bombed by somebody. It's revolutionary today. Talk about multilateralism, defend, for example, the International Organization of Work, the United Nations system. It's because people like Trump and Milei, the dictators of the right wing, they attack and they remove finances from these places where we would be able to build peace, democracy, like the United Nations. Results of the horrible errors of the Second World War. We have to be in these places. I'm going to get to the end of my brief speech. We have to be there in the United Nations. I'd really like to remind you all that the International Organization of Work is the only place where Palestine is an independently recognized state. Palestine can respond because we've been able to, with a lot of pressure, recognize the state of Palestine in this area. It seems like something small, but actually once you start to recognize the rights of people under bombardment in Gaza in this moment as human rights, together like us, it's something revolutionary. We've been flanking people who in Istanbul in Turkey are protesting against the regime of Erdogan that's trying to destroy the democratic voices of the people, even arresting the mayor of Istanbul. We send our greatest solidarity to this battle and to the trade unions, the activists, the journalists that have all been oppressed in Turkey. We've said that we're with them in solidarity. And I'm going to close highlighting our support to this really important cause and leaving a last message, which speaks to all those places, all those cities in this moment suffering from the harms, the destruction of bombs, violence, and this crazy rearmament that has been reactivated at the global level. I'll say it again because we said it in the squares last year, in the streets, in September, at the anniversary of the Zinjan Azadi revolution, the Women, Life, Freedom. We were saying it together with Iran, the population of Myanmar, to those destroyed under earthquakes, under horrible dictatorships, where bombs are falling, also in Ukraine and Congo. Let's not forget the many so-called forgotten wars that still suffer from harm. And the message from Öcalan, we find a new message, something incredible. It's really an incredible message that we want to support. All the world leaders invite us to turn to violence, but leader Öcalan has said something completely different and revolutionary. Thank you.
Grazie mille, Salvatore Marra. Adesso passo.
So now I'm giving the floor to Massimiliano Smeriglio, a comrade, spokesperson for the culture from the City Council of Rome, for some institutional greetings from the Council of Rome. So thank you. Welcome you all. Thank you, Ilmaz. I want to greet everybody from the City Council. I'm proud of representing the city of Rome in this seat. I'd like to greet the international delegates and Comrade Judith Pard, with whom we share an experience before the Brexit, when the English delegation was forced to go back home. So I'm glad to see her here. The connection between the Kurdish community and the city of Rome is really profound. It was born many years ago in 1998 during a demonstration and mobilization due to the presence of Ocalan here in Rome, and during an extraordinary protest of Square Kurdistan. Dino Fresullo devoted part of his life to this struggle, and I want to remember him today. And also Maurizio Russo Spena is here, and they also contributed in a very important way to that protest. And also the presence of Ararat here in Rome. We are trying to rebuild the area of the Mattatoio, but the presence of the Kurdish community is really welcomed here, and it's going to remain in this context even after the renovation. Ilmaz was referring to the statement of the 27th of February, historical statements, in which it is given to the public debate the possibility to go back from the armed struggle. And one of the answers of the Turkish government has been the arrest of the City Council of Istanbul. I think it is really important what has happened in these last 20 years of armed struggle. So on the one side, incarcerations, violence, and so on, during which the President Ocalan and the diaspora has elaborated a theory, a paradigm, wondering if nationalism could be destroyed by another nationalism, or if it was rather necessary to find another solution, because war cannot be defeated by war, and nationalism cannot be defeated by nationalism. Nationalism produces war, patriarchy, and a constant violation of international law. Has happened in Kurdistan, in Syria, and in Gaza every day. Every day we witness the violation of international law. Well, from this approach was given birth to the confederalism, and it means to give dignity to the word democracy, to participation, to the centrality of feminism, and to the struggle against patriarchy. To put together what oligarchs today, the true oligarchs from the US, what they want to break. They tell us that liberty, freedom is not compatible, cannot go together with democracy. But here we have an example of the opposite. I think it is not easy to change society. I don't think it's easy to change ourselves. The approach to the political line stances that we have, it's not easy while you fight against ISIS and Daesh in Syria, while you face incarceration. But this is what happened, and I think that this is a real patrimony that the Kurdish movement and Ocalan gave us. They gave us an approach towards political category that lead us to imagine a new society. And I think it would be a really good struggle to be done together, to consider, to give birth after these days, a campaign to give to President Ocalan the Nobel Prize.
Grazie.
Thank you very much, Massimiliano Smeriglia. And now we leave the floor to Professor Karianne Wessenheim, the message from the Nobel Prize for the campaign.
First, let me begin by expressing my heartfelt thanks to the organizers and the host of this venue, Salvatore Marra. I also greet the Minister of Culture of the Municipality of Rome, who just spoke. Thank you. Massimiliano Smiriglio. And also a special thanks to and greeting to the representative of the DEM party, which is with us here, and representatives of the autonomous administration of North and East Syria. Is it not? Okay. And it's a pleasure also to have with us Öcalan's nephew, Mr. Ömer Öcalan. It's truly an honor to speak before such a remarkable gathering of hundreds of delegates here in Rome, representing unions, social movements, legal minds, scholars, activists, political parties, officials, artists, and many, many others. And they are from across the globe. Your presence is a testament of the growing momentum of a campaign that began just in October 2023. Since its launch, the campaign has sparked off a powerful wave of international solidarity. People from every corner of the world have rallied behind Mr. Öcalan's call for peace and democratic society, answering with a resounding message of support for peace, for dialogue, and for the possibilities of a new beginning. And the energy is just growing. We have seen firsthand how this campaign has inspired mass mobilization and elevated the conversation around peace, even in these early stages. And now, with this Rome conference, we have this chance to mark a true turning point, one that could shape the future of this movement and help carry it forward with a renewed strength. Importantly, this momentum isn't limited to grassroots movements. The United Nations, members of the European Parliament, and several national governments have begun to recognize the potential of this fragile but vital peace process. The campaign has also won the backing of an extraordinary range of supporters, including numerous Nobel Peace Laureates. Just recently, 70 Nobel laureates, led by Professor Jody Williams from the US and Dr. Shireen Ebadi from Iran, they lent their voices to the cause, urging key political leaders to embrace the path of peace. On March 27, exactly 1 month after Mr. Öcalan's historic call, Jody Williams stood at the European Parliament and delivered a powerful appeal. And this statement, her statement, was signed by over 250 individuals and numerous organizations, including a resounding chorus of support. Now, in honor of this very conference and the glimmer of peace in the horizon, Jody Williams and Shireen Ebadi have taken another bold step. They penned an open letter addressed to the same global institutions and to President Erdogan, reminding us that in a world beset by conflict and division, Mr. Öcalan's vision stands as a powerful beacon of hope. Let this gathering here today be more than a moment. Let it be a milestone in a movement that grows stronger with every voice, every action, and every step towards lasting peace. I have the pleasure of reading the letter to the institutions on behalf of Jody Williams and Shireen Ebadi, which will eventually be signed by several Nobel laureates. Williams and Ebadi sends their warm greetings to the campaign and to this conference. I will now read the letter. To the attention of the Committee of Ministers of the Council of Europe, the European Court of Human Rights, the European Committee for the Prevention of Torture, and the UN Human Rights Committee. We, the undersigned Nobel laureates, express our support for Kurdish leader Abdullah Öcalan's call for peace and our ongoing concern about the conditions under which he has been held during his 26 years of imprisonment. In a time of intensifying conflict around the world, Mr. Öcalan's call for peace and democracy in Turkey stands as a beacon of hope for the peoples of the region. As European and international entities charged with promoting and protecting human rights and preventing torture, Mr. Öcalan's decades of imprisonment are not new to you. The Nobel laureates have also written to you on several occasions about Mr. Öcalan's imprisonment and that of other political prisoners in Turkey. We write again due to significant developments in the Turkish-Kurdish peace process and the case of Mr. Öcalan. On the 27th of February 2025, Mr. Öcalan put forward a call for peace and democratic society, calling for a ceasefire, the laying down of arms, the convening of a Congress to discuss the dissolution of the PKK, and democratic political solution to the Kurdish question. In his call, he stresses the importance of strengthening fraternity between the peoples of Turkey and his commitment to facilitating the peace process. Mr. Öcalan's call follows in spirit of fraternity and peace, as Albert Nobel emphasized so strongly. As Nobel laureates, we recognize and support this initiative in the context of resumed peace negotiations, and as the legitimate political representatives and leader of the Kurdish people. Mr. Öcalan must be free and allowed to participate fully in the peace process he initiated, and thus to communicate freely with his lawyers, his party, and all actors in this process. The concern of the Nobel laureates who have signed this open letter arises from the apparent lack of meaningful efforts made by the European entities addressed here, as well as the UN Human Rights Committee on his behalf. While Mr. Öcalan's rights are guaranteed under the Turkish constitution and domestic legislations, under statutes and regulations of the European Union, and through international law, none of that seems to matter. We call upon all these bodies to fulfill their obligations regarding protecting the rights of Mr. Abdullah Öcalan. We call on the Council of Europe's Committee of Ministers to ensure the implementation of the ECHR 2014 decision against aggravated life sentences and on the right to hope. Mr. Öcalan's call for peace has received widespread international support, from the UN Secretary-General to nearly a dozen national governments, to members of the European Parliament and civil society organizations around the world. President Erdogan has himself recognized that the only way forward to peace between the Turkish and the Kurdish people is through dialogue and negotiation with Abdullah Öcalan, as was demonstrated during Oslo talks 2009 to 2011 and the Emirali process from 2013 to 2015. We call for Mr. Öcalan's release and for him to be given full and unrestricted opportunity to participate in the peace process. Sincerely yours, Jody Williams, Nobel Peace Prize 1997, and Dr. Shirin Ebadi, Nobel Peace Prize laureate 2003. Thank you for the attention.
Molto grazie.
Thank you very much. And now we leave the floor to Simon Dubbins for the International Network Freedom for Ocalan and Unite the Union.
Mic on? Okay, we're starting. Look, colleagues, let me begin just by saying thanks ever so much for the invitation to be here. It is a real pleasure and a privilege to say a few words at this extremely important conference. My name's Simon Dubbins. I look after the international work for Unite the Union, one of the largest trade unions in the UK with over 1 million members. And I'm also the chair of the Trade Union Freedom for Öcalan campaign in the UK. I want to start as well by saying a huge thanks to Nilofer and the KNK for all the work in organising this event. You do a fantastic job under very difficult circumstances. And I want to put on record our thanks to our sister organisation, the CGL, who we've always worked very closely with and have always been our point of political reference here in Italy. It really is fantastic to be with you all. Colleagues, I want to start actually where I intend to finish as well, which is to say from the very beginning that although things are moving and critical steps are being taken with regards to Abdullah Öcalan's situation and the moves towards peace, the reality is the situation remains extremely fragile, and it's absolutely essential at this moment that nobody relaxes and thinks that we're on a march that is now inevitable. The reality is it's still very fluid, very dangerous, and we need to make every single effort and continue our campaigns to keep the pressure on for the freedom of Abdullah Öcalan and a new peace process. Despite the good progress, we should be under no illusions. There is still huge repression and huge violence. But things are definitely changing fast, and I think what's important about this conference is that it gives us a tremendous opportunity to actually talk about what's happening, reflect on what's happening, and try and chart the best possible way forward for everybody. I wanted to share, and I was asked to share with you, a few thoughts and words about the campaign in the UK. I don't know if they managed to be able to show some of the pictures of our campaign, but it's important to understand that the UK trade unions have been working in solidarity with Kurds and Kurdistan for many years, long before 2014. Our fire brigades union, teachers unions were already doing actions and delegations in solidarity. Our bigger campaign really began, though, as many did, around the time of Kobani, when people were watching with disgust and horror at what was going on, the brutality and barbarity of the ISIS attacks, and watching in awe and wonder at the Kurdish resistance that was going on, and also utter disgust at Erdogan and his open support for ISIS and refusal to allow Kurdish fighters to cross to assist their colleagues in Kobani. So a couple of the trade unions got together, and at that time we sent a delegation to Diyarbakir, Ahmed. It happened to be at the time when Sur district was under complete attack from the Turkish forces, and we came back utterly shocked. I've been myself in Colombia and Palestine and seen many things, and I thought I was prepared for it. But never in my life was I expecting to see the type of barbarity being inflicted on Kurds in the Sur district there, it was quite clear that the Syrian civil war was already spilling over into Turkey at that time. So we came back to the UK really determined to do something, but we didn't actually know how best to organise it and how best to move forward. So we talked and discussed a great deal, and we understood the way to approach it was to build a campaign for the freedom of Abdullah Öcalan, because Öcalan is the embodiment of the Kurdish political and freedom movement, and obviously that was a more simple way to bring a complex issue back to our grassroots members and get them to understand how important this is and to give them a focus for their solidarity work. We decided to really try and push things forward, so we launched the campaign in April 2016. We had Dilip Öcalan with us and Cameron Yutzak at the time, and we launched it in the UK Parliament. It rapidly grew, and we grew to 15 national unions affiliating to our campaign and supporting our activities. All of the big unions affiliated, with just one exception. We went on to hold regular fringe meetings at all our union congresses and conferences, and really tried to build the campaign further. We have a massive event called the Durham Miners Gala in the UK, and in 2018 we were really pleased that we managed to get the organisation to accept freedom for Öcalan as the main theme, and we managed to really raise the profile further. At the 2019 TUC Congress, that's our confederation like GGL, but our politics have probably not historically been as progressive and radical, I think it's fair to say. But we actually got every single delegate in the hall to stand up and hold one of these pictures of Öcalan. And that demonstrated our real solidarity and sent a real message to the Kurds that they were not alone and that Abdullah Öcalan had not been forgotten. We then repeated those actions in all of the national unions, in Unite itself, in the Teachers' Union, the fire brigades, the railway drivers. All of them were doing the same actions and trying to move forward as well. We did similar events at other rallies. We held events at the Labour Party conference, and the pressure was building, and the profile and the campaign for freedom for Abdullah Öcalan was certainly moving forward. I don't want to deny that we've had setbacks. As soon as the COVID crisis came, it was much more difficult to meet and to do things. We nonetheless moved online and undertook some of our activities there and built a very good online campaign. After that, again, it was difficult to get our members to focus on the issue. We had a massive strike wave. There was the inflation crisis. Attention was taken away from some of the international things, but still the campaign existed and we managed to push forward as best we possibly could. More recently, we've seen huge repression from the UK state now. Whereas before we could actually hold events at the Labour Party conference, that's become much, much more difficult. We've actually seen our Kurdish community in the UK attacked and criminalised. The police raided the Kurdish Community Centre in London and arrested 6 of our colleagues whom we've worked with for years. It's much more difficult, and that goes with the general atmosphere of repression now against the Palestinian movement as well. And I think that's true in virtually every European country and countries outside of Europe. But there's no doubt in this age of nationalism, the far right and Trump and some of the things that my colleague here referred to, we're in a difficult atmosphere, but it's more essential than ever that we try to keep moving and keep our support for the freedom of Öcalan and the Kurdish freedom movement moving. I'm not going to pretend that it's going to get any easier. I think we all know the reality of the situation that we're in. So I'll finish with this colleagues, I have to say there were times when freedom for Öcalan and ending Öcalan's isolation and getting his real freedom seemed as far away as ever and almost a distant possibility. So the recent news of the breakthrough and contact being established again and the isolation being broken, the declaration from Abdullah Öcalan that's been referred to, and the meetings that are now taking place on Imrali have been absolutely fantastic, and I think there's real reason for a cautious, and I stress cautious, optimism about where we're going and that we're finally moving in a better direction. But I'll emphasise again, we remain under absolutely no illusion whatsoever about the reality of the situation that we're in. We know how fragile things are and how very quickly that they can take a turn for the worse again. We see the brutal repression that is still going on in Turkey itself. Öcalan has not been freed yet, even though there is access. He's not been freed to play the role that only he can play and he needs to be able to play. We see how quickly things have changed in Syria. We see the ongoing war on the Palestinians. We see the Israeli war on Lebanon. And there's also a big fear of an imminent attack against Iran. So the whole region is in a state of flux, and we're trying to push this forward with that at the context. So we understand that it's going to be difficult, and it's certainly not going to be an easy task. But I'll finish with this, colleagues. The Kurdish struggle and the struggle for freedom is also very much the same struggle as the trade union struggle has always been. It's a struggle for peace, for tolerance, for democracy, for women's rights, for inclusiveness. They are the values of our movement, and they're the values of the Kurdish movement, and we intend to continue standing shoulder to shoulder with the Kurdish struggle as we move forward. The Kurdish struggle is not just about our solidarity with the Kurds, but as also been mentioned earlier, the Kurdish struggle has been an absolute inspiration to the wider trade union and workers' struggle in the difficult times that we find ourselves in. So let's carry on going forward together. Let's not take our eye off the ball. Let's remain vigilant, and let's keep the pressure on the Turkish state to engage properly in a peace process and really bring about the true liberation and freedom for Abdullah Öcalan. Thank you.
Grazie mille, Simon Dovens.
And now I'm leaving the floor to Zubede Zumrud, spokesperson for the campaign Freedom for Öcalan.
Spas. Sevgili dostlar, yoldaşlar, değerli katılımcılar, sizleri özgürlük ve barış mücadelesi yürüten Kürdistani halklar adına içtenlikle selamlıyorum.
Dear friends, dear comrades, esteemed participants, I sincerely greet you on behalf of the Kurdistani peoples struggling for freedom and peace. It is a great significance to be together here in Rome, not only on the occasion of a conference, but also common witnesses and bearers of a historical process. This unity is one of the strongest reflections of the international conscience that embraces the struggle of a people. Today, we are here at the great summit of our Freedom for Öcalan political solution to the Kurdish Question campaign, which we launched in October 2023 and which has now turned into a worldwide popular movement. I would like to emphasize that this campaign is not just a call text, a slogan or a wish, but the name of a collective historical process with the will to transform the world. This global campaign is not just a signature drive or a temporary activism process. It is the voice of the conscience, hope, and desire for resistance of the peoples of the world. With actions, meetings, marches, panels, regardings of Öcalan's books and vigils in hundreds of cities of 5 continents, Abdullah Öcalan's freedom has become the common demand not of a people, but of tens of thousands of people in favor of humanity. This movement is now more than a campaign, it is an internationalization of peoples. Today, the world is in the grip of systematic crises, wars, authoritarian governments, and ecological destruction. The chaotic situation created by capitalist modernity can now be felt in every corner of the world. Social tissues are disintegrating, nature is being plundered, and the woman's gains are retreating. And in this age of crisis, the democratic confederalism paradigm developed by Mr. Öcalan offers an alternative worthy of human dignity. This model, based on women's freedom, people's assemblies, and ecological society, is a promising way out, not only for the Kurdish people, but for all peoples. Dear friends, and dear comrades, Kurdish people's leader Abdullah Öcalan has been crucially punished with isolation since 1999, that is for 26 years, for paving the way to freedom for oppressed peoples and women with his ideas. For 26 years he has been subjected to torture. Even the Council of Europe, CPT, and the European Court of Human Rights, which are obliged to monitor human rights and the rule of law due to interstate relations of interest, have failed to fulfill their responsibilities. The Öcalan case has also demonstrated in the most flagrant manner how the European Convention on Human Rights has been sacrificed to interstate interests. But Abdullah Öcalan has also resisted this, and in his most recent appeal on the 27th of February, he challenged the politics of interstate interest and called on societies to take action for peace. The impact of our campaign is now visible and tangible. This campaign, which is the product of great costs, sacrifices, and determination, has made history by overcoming countless obstacles. Today, we can say here with peace of mind, since October 2024, 5 separate meetings have been held with Mr. Öcalan on İmralı Island. This development is not only a diplomatic event, it is a historical victory achieved through the slogans chanted by tens of thousands of people in the squares, the events organized by hundreds of thousands, and the joint efforts of International Solidarity Network. Behind this victory, international institutions such as the United Nations, the Council of Europe, and the European Union were put under pressure. Behind this victory is the faithful struggle of trade unions, human rights defenders, feminist movements, environmentalists, and international revolutionaries. Today, thanks to this struggle and the relentless resistance of the Kurdish people for 26 years, Öcalan's ideas are reaching millions of people. Democratic confederalism is being discussed worldwide, and it is taking shape as the new language of resistance. And the most importantly, the historic call made by Mr. Öcalan on the 27th of February 2025 once again demonstrated how meaningful and powerful this solidarity and struggle is. That call resonated as a manifesto of peace and freedom, and not only for the Kurdish people, but also for the peoples of Turkey, the peoples of the Middle East, and the world community. This call once again declared that a democratic coexistence between peoples is possible and that a society without war and exploitation can be established. However, the realization of this call is only possible with the physical freedom of Mr. Öcalan, because he is not only a producer of ideas, he is also a will for peace, a capacity for solution, a march of the peoples. His freedom is the freedom of the peoples. Today, there is a new authoritarian wave growing over the world. This wave threatens the future imagination of not only for the poor, women or youth, but also the entire humanity. In the Middle East, these threats are much more burning, much more destructive. In Syria, the fanatism of the Hayat Tahrir al-Sham type, which developed after the Ba'ath and ISIS, threatens the will of the peoples. In Iraq, centralist, oppressive and sectarian structures take the breath away from the peoples. In Iran, women-led popular movements are being suppressed and intimidated. In Turkey, repression against democratic politics is being institutionalized through trustee policies that usurp the will of the Kurdish people. On a global scale, authoritarian regimes united with capital are trying to drown the entire planet in darkness. In this picture, Öcalan's paradigm is a breath of fresh air for the peoples and hope for the future. Dear friends, dear comrade, Nelson Mandela said many years ago, "I have walked that long road to freedom. I have discovered that after climbing a great hill, the only one finds that there are many more hills to climb." So today, we are also on that long road. Mr. Öcalan's resistance in İmralı for a quarter of century is most of the most important stops on this march. This path is based not only on comradeship, but also on the will of an organized people. This will resonate not only with the Kurdish people, but with the whole world, from Latin America to Asia, from Europe to Africa. This march is no longer the march of nations, but of humanity. I would like to take this opportunity to thank all those who have contributed to the campaign, who have worked hard, and who have shown solidarity with us from all over the world. Every individual, every organization, every movement that takes part in the struggle is the carrier of this process, especially the international support shown by the trade union movements, academic circles, of women's organizations, and local people's assemblies constitute the strongest pillars of this struggle. We will continue to grow this solidarity. Our goal is even greater in the upcoming period. We will not only ensure the freedom of Mr. Öcalan, we will also build the common future of the peoples in line with the paradigm he proposes. We will popularize democratic confederalism not only as a proposal, but as a way of life. Finally, I would like to share with you a poem written by Mr. Öcalan in İmralı. This poem carries not only a longing, but also the spirit of our call. This poem is one of the greatest epics of the Yazidi people. It is an epic of love, freedom, and heroism. As a people's leader, Mr. Öcalan has always attached great importance to the place of the Yazidi people in democratic Kurdish nation building and has made significant contributions to preserve this culture. Öcalan wrote, "I wish I was with Dervish Avdi in the mountains of Shingal. I wish I could dive into the plains of Mosul on the backs of white horses. When Dervish was shot, I should have carried him on my shoulder to the mountains of Kurdistan. I would have told him, look, thousands of Adules are here. Thousands of the 12s are here. Rest in these mountains. This is where the goddesses are enthroned. Death, no matter where it comes from, and no matter how it comes, don't mourn anymore. That the sharpness of Kurdishness and the free life is the real thing. I wish I said. We will carry this call together at every stop from now and on, because this path is a path that builds not only the past but also the future. Today, raising this call from freedom from Rome has a historical and symbolic meaning, because in 1998, Mr. Öcalan came to the city with the aim of building peace and democratic society. However, as a result of an international conspiracy, he was forced to leave and then he was captured. Today, 26 years later, this call for Mr. Öcalan's freedom, rising from the same city, is the strongest expression of the will to confront history and establish a free future. We would like to thank everyone, especially our friends that have been supporting us for the last 1.5 years. Thank you very much for their efforts, and we hope that this struggle will continue. Long live freedom, long live the resistance of peoples, long live leader Apo, and long live women, life, freedom. Thank you.